What's good, everybody, and welcome back to the End Goal Podcast, the show where I like to have conversations with people about topics that I find interesting and or educative. And today's guest, listen, listen, you see this plushie right here? Okay, there's like 4 books right there, massive books right there. We're talking to Michael R. Miller, guys. We are talking to my favorite author and my favorite series of 2025 today. That's the conversation you're about to hear. I'm super excited for it. I hope he's super excited for it. I really do hope he's super excited for it. And if you're excited for it, wow, please join us all in the excitement and just come over. Just come over. Michael, thank you for joining me today. I want to first let everybody know who you are. So if nobody's ever heard of you, can you provide a brief introduction of who is Michael R. Miller?
So Michael Armill is an epic fantasy author. I'm an indie author. I'm Scottish. I live in London. I'm a new dad. And I'm best known in terms of my writing for the Songs of Chaos series, which is a kind of classic Dragon Rider epic with a few modern twists. And I have a previous trilogy called the Dragon's Blade trilogy and a single standalone lit RPG called Battlespire.
Amazing. Guys, so to catch everybody up on this, so I read Michael's books last year. I read one of his series last year. It's called Ascendant. I have it in my hand because I was skimming through it again this morning as getting ready for this. It was awesome. I read book 1 in January and I was like, this is going to be my personality for probably the rest of the year. It was. It generally was. I have books 2 and 3 over there and then the fat book 4 a little bit out of the screen right there. Um, so, yeah, favorite series of 2025. By the end of it,
Okay.
I read
Thank you.
great books, other great books, but I was like, this nothing beat Ascendant. Or Songs of Chaos in general. And I kind of wanted to start there with you.
Okay.
Is
It's a high bar.
I mean, based on the book, I mean, the books that I read last year were a mix. I'll be honest with you. I was trying to also like figure out how trustworthy am I with my own, like the books that I like versus getting recommendations from other people, and by other people I mean book talk. And I was like, every month, give
Yeah.
me books. I'll put them on a wheel. I will read them, and I just compared those to the books that I organically wanted to read. And basically every single month, except for the months that I read Red Rising, because then I was forced to read Red Rising. Every other single month, books that I found were just better. Your books being one of them, because I believe um, I at least got. I don't remember. I don't even remember how I got Ascendant. I know I got Dragon's Blade through like Day of the Dragon, or something like that at some point. Maybe the year before, along with like Cahill's and like other people's books. So I think that might have been where I got Ascendant. And I was like, I just need to read this. I just need to read this. Read it on my was it my I read it on my honeymoon trip. So that wasn't the
Yeah.
best time investment, but I was like, this is so good.
Yeah.
But sorry to
Maybe
ask
you're
you,
in a
like,
good mood on
how
the honeymoon.
did
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, that's fair. Um, where did Ascendant come from? Where did Songs of Chaos come from?
It comes from a few places. I mean, it comes from me. So I started working on it very late 2018 is when I first started thinking about the series. By that point, I was already like a full-time writer. Dragon's Blade had been successful enough that
Mhm.
it was now my job, which is amazing. And I'd already written Battlespire, and that was due to come out in a few months in early 2019. So I was starting work on the next thing. So bearing in mind, this is where I was. I kind of although Dragon's Blade had been successful, I found at first it was harder to sell it because it didn't have that obvious classification. I couldn't obviously point to stories quite like it. I couldn't say it's definitely like this and this because it kind of is. It's quite unique in some ways. Um, and so I was sort of experimenting with the idea of, can I try to capture lightning in the bottle? Like, can I try on purpose to grab some of that energy? And what better way in some ways than the Dragon Rider story? Because I loved the inheritance cycle growing up, and I know there was Temeraire that kind of came in and around it, and it kind of extended past it, but it felt like there hadn't really been anything like that since the inheritance cycle ended. But I did see a lot of self-published authors were putting out Dragon Rider books, and they seem to be gaining some success. So I thought, okay, this is my job now. I need to write something. I want to try and attempt this, and I want to study the hero's journey too. That was part of it. It was kind of like a deliberate, like I want to study the hero's journey and try to like make a book that just is bang on that. Try to master that, but make it feel still fresh and interesting, and or make all the old tropes work by giving them a little bit of nuance and kind of really not just like putting them in there because they're there, but like kind of making sure that they function right in the story, so like it doesn't feel cliche. Like it was kind of like a challenge. It was both a challenge to me, but also a sense of I think this would do well. So it was both a kind of creative and a commercial decision.
Mm-hmm.
And in terms of like going down the sense of okay, so I also really loved the How to Train Your Dragon movies, and I kind of felt like I wanted the Dragon Bonds to reflect that kind of story where it you really feel like this dragon could be your partner, your best friend.
Mm-hmm.
But then just by aging it up, the dragons also now talk. They can so that the dragon would be a full blown
Yeah.
character in the way that Toothless he is a character, but without being able to speak, it's limited a little bit. And I was
Mm-hmm.
obviously inspired by the fact that I thought that the reason why their bond works so well, because I always wondered with Dragon Rider stories, why did the dragons ever let the humans ride them? Like, what's in it for them? It
Mm-hmm.
always seems like the
Yeah.
humans get a lot out of it, and the
I
dragons are just kind of like,
agree.
yeah,
I
like,
agree.
yeah. Why? Just because. Some not, sometimes it's just because though. But Toothless and Hiccup work so well because Toothless needs Hiccup to fly. Like, so
Mm-hmm.
why in that world there's no dragon riders, and we're watching the first dragon riders come about, and so you have to explain why that would even happen. But by whether but by accident you get that happy sense of you really believe that they become this first bonded pair, because the dragon needs the kid in a way that other stories don't always echo. And so I kind of wanted to take inspiration from that, and so I always knew that I needed Ash to really need Hope, um, and vice versa. And then that came into okay, well, all the other Dragon Riders, what was their shtick? So that's sort of to make the magic system work in a way where the rider benefits the dragon as well through the magic system, through cleansing of the core, and so that was kind of important. And then it kind of just kept building from there. I had these principles of I want to do a hero's journey. I want to really study that. I want it to be a Dragon Rider epic. I want to shove in all. They told me in Dragon's Blade it was hard to sell. I'm going to put every trope possible in here, but make it work somehow. Like that's a creative challenge. I mean, it is. Everything's in there, but hopefully you still come away thinking it didn't feel old at all. It felt kind of fresh.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of where it started. I mean, it was just like a whole bunch of things, but also in a kind of even more zoomed out sense, I just felt that, and I'm sure other people have talked about this now. So they were in 2026, and I was thinking about this 8 years ago. So 8 years is a long time, but it felt like fantasy had been very dark for a long time too. And not to say that Ascendant and Songs of Chaos is like happy clappy, like there's lots of darker moments, but I like the idea that we could still have heroes that were actually heroes, that
Yeah.
they weren't stupid, they weren't naive, they weren't, that they could learn, that they would make mistakes and there'd be consequences, but they fundamentally were trying to do the right thing, trying to be good. And even when punished, they'll still do the right thing, which is a very,
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of like Daredevil. Like Daredevil's my favorite of all the Marvel characters that we've had in the MCU and the kind of TV shows. And you get that sense of like Daredevil was just punished over and over and over and over, but he's still Daredevil. Like he's
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
even more so than Captain America. Captain America gets punished a little bit, but Daredevil gets punished a lot. But he's still
Mm-hmm.
a hero after all the crap he goes
Mm-hmm.
through. Um,
Yeah.
and I thought, well, everything's quite dark. It's good to offer something an alternative. Um, but so
Mm-hmm.
not super cheerful, not super childlike. It's just in a dark world and with lots of rich emotional dark character arcs that can happen. You can still have these characters who strive to be better, and even when they fail, they try to learn and then try again. We don't want nihilism in the story. Is kind of what I was going for.
Yeah. No, I like that. I kinda wanna, like, touch on what you said about, you put a lot into this, like, story, right? Because, uh, I do wanna also touch on the fact that you said you wanted to study the hero's journey, and I'm gonna come back to that in a second because I find, like, a very
Okay.
that's a very interesting phrasing. But you did put a lot in here. I wanna kinda, tell people, like, what's in here a little bit, right? Dragon Rider story, hero's journey, like you said. Ash, the main dragon. Guys, this is a blindfold. This is a blindfold because he's blind. Um, Ash is dope. We're not gonna talk about what Ash's ability is because I think that's a really good point of the story, but you put I think we generally talk about this book as a sort of a progression fantasy, right? And progression as in
I
kind
think
of the
if people like progression fantasy, they tend to call it that, and if
yeah.
they hate progression fantasy, they tend to not call it that. it it
Interesting.
it has some elements because at the time when I was developing Ascendant, I was also reading Cradle by Will White and some other progression fantasies for the first time. And I realized about midway through the draft of book one that I was working on, I kind of made a system that was I kind of made the magic feel a little bit like these other books, but half-assed and half-baked. But by
Yeah.
reading some of these other books, I was like, oh, this is kind of what I'm almost doing by accident, but it's not very good yet. But I was able to take inspiration from some of those stories and then refine the system and give it more better terminology and stuff like that. So yeah, there is a progression element. So to tell people what that is in case they don't know, people refer to progression fantasy as character begins at level like the lowest ranks of magical power, and there's a sort of inherent promise that they're going to go through all the training and all the knowledge. They're going to learn all the secrets, and they're going to become like the highest one that's possible,
Mhm.
possibly even something even beyond that. And part of
Yeah.
the fun is watching them go on that journey and getting more powerful. Um,
Right.
but it's a weird label. Like it's also just hard magics, in the way that in Mistborn, Vin starts knowing nothing, and by the end of the third book, she's like God for 5 minutes.
Mhm.
That's as much a progression fantasy, in my opinion, as Songs of Chaos or
Yeah.
Cradle or something. It just doesn't have
Okay.
some more explicit terms, but that is what that is. She
Mm.
goes in this massive arc, doesn't she? Like, so anyone that
Yeah.
goes on the journey like that of mastering the magic and mastering the power and becoming more powerful, that is a progression
Yeah.
story.
So now we're gonna call it a story with progression elements instead of calling it progression fantasy because I like that more, and I appreciate you actually
I I would just say it's an
detailing that
epic
out.
fantasy. It's an epic
Yeah.
fantasy, or it's a Dragon Rider fantasy if you want. And the magic,
Mhm.
people can take it or leave it.
Yeah.
You know, I know that there are some people who might be put off by the idea that it's progression, and it's like, oh, you'll be
Sure.
fine. If you like
Sure.
Sanderson, if you like most fantasy, you'll get on well with it. Don't worry about people calling it XYZ thing. You know,
Exactly. No, I
yeah.
I agree with you on that. There was a I'll tell you the single paragraph that got me immediately hooked on this book because I've had my finger held
Okay.
right here for the past,
Right there.
like, how much ever time that we've been talking. It's
All right.
chapter 4,
Like,
it's
yeah.
the 2nd paragraph, and it's
Okay.
when the main character, Holt, is watching the dragon riders appear, and they say and you wrote each rider also had a great weapon strapped on their backs. Most were swords too big for ordinary humans to wield, and each blade's shape and color were influenced by its rider's magic. Fire Rider's swords appeared to ripple like flames. Ice Rider's blades came to sharper points. Emerald Riders had thick, broad blades, sturdy as stone. The Storm Riders had jagged blades which spoke of lightning. And the Mystics, well, there's no end to variety there. And as a gamer, Michael, as a gamer who loves weapon customization in games, putting the smallest little bit of weapon customization in this story of like your dragon's ability and your ability also shapes the great blade that you eventually wield. And as someone who also imagines everything as he reads it, that was amazing. I was like, that was the first one that I was like, I'm hooked. I'm hooked. I was like, I
That's
can trust this
interesting.
guy for the rest of
Yeah.
the book.
Oh,
I
that's
can trust you for the
interesting.
rest of the book.
Yeah. Well, you
So
never know
I
what people
loved
will
that.
get. Yeah, you never know what people hook into. That's interesting to hear.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if you've ever like if anyone's ever told you that about that, but I remember reading that and I
Yeah.
screenshotted it. And I think either I tweeted it, put it online. I was like, this is this is one of them ones. This is one of them ones.
Okay, that's for
Um,
you. Yeah,
but
man. I
yeah.
mean, makes sense to me. I mean, it's good to theme it throughout and give people that visual sense of who they are immediately and stuff. And but also like I remember playing Fable 3 when I was younger, and they had a similar system in the game
Mm-hmm.
where depending on what your character did, if you could wield the sword, but if you were rubbish at it, but you did tons and tons of magic, the way that the sword would still like evolve with you and it would look more like a mage sword. But if you did that, it would kind of change based on your playstyle
Mm.
and vice versa, all these weapons. And I thought that was always a really cool feature of that game. So it's always made sense. And everyone loves like in the Knights of the Old Republic, like the the RPGs, not like the MMO, like
Yeah, yeah.
that you could usually get a customized lightsaber and you would be able to
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember exactly. You could usually get a custom color and like some other stats, but like it would reflect something. It is a fun extra. It is a fun
Yeah.
extra to put in. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I mean going through Ascendant, then Unbound, Defiant, and now Reckoning last year. Um how was your kind of journey writing all of that? Like how did it feel going through like each book, the process for each book? I mean, I don't know if you watched it, but when I talked about Reckoning, guys, the entire point of the video of me talking about Reckoning, my review on it was Arish tries not to crash out. And by the end of the video, I crash out. That's all you need to know about it. But how was the process? Because I want to know now for like at least writing Reckoning. Like how did that go?
Writing Reckoning was interesting in that it was, and maybe in some ways, it was easier than Book Three, but it still took a while, but more because I kept finding better ways to do what I Book Three was really hard because it's the middle of the middle.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I had to kind of wrap up a lot of things from one and two. I had to introduce new things to keep things going from four and five. Book three was really the hardest one for sure. Um, Plus, we were moving house at the time, so
Yeah.
that's stressful. Book four, I think I had a stronger sense of where I was going from the start, but I just kept finding sort of better ways to do it. I think so. Like the Osric story got drafted more or less three entire times, not quite from scratch, but it was so heavily edited and rewritten, but like it was almost doing it three times. But each time I felt like we're getting closer and closer, and I didn't have to do that. I could have ran with the first version, but I'm glad. But I'm glad I did because I think it's one of the best parts. Um, and I'm glad I took that time. But therefore, it took triple the time to like that small piece of the story. So the whole thing
Mm-hmm.
took about as long as Defiant, but it was more because I was like working it to the bone, and that's why I felt like when I finished Reckoning, I had written the best book. That's my honest opinion. I think it's the best of the series. I'm biased, obviously. Um, so four was like just pushing myself to the limit because it was about trying to like the amount that happens in four is like vast, but it's actually less words than book three.
Mm-hmm.
The way the print versions don't really reflect that, but it's Reckoning is actually shorter than book three by words. But I think there's more. I think there's like far more in it than
Mm.
Defiant. It's like Defiant and a bit like just so much happens. And I feel like I
Yeah.
was able to kind of condense it all down and work it in such a way that I could make it that short for what
Mm-hmm.
um like the original draft was like if you take the raw draft, it was like 290,000 words or something, and I got it down to 230. So I got a lot out and a lot of rewrites to kind of weave it and condense it. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I like to think every book is like that. To a bit, I like to think I'm always pushing myself and always improving in certain ways. Um, Three was by far the hardest for the reasons I've mentioned. Two was probably the easiest then, because two I just picked up immediately after one. And at that point, I still didn't quite know where the series would go. So I was just writing book two kind of in and of itself, and I wasn't necessarily thinking about what comes after.
Mm-hmm.
Because I didn't know at that point because the book one had sort of just come out, and it wasn't clear how successful it was going to be. So it was kind of like for a while in book two, I'm kind of hedging like, should this be just a trilogy? Should I be able to expand it?
Yeah.
And book two was also written during most of like the COVID lockdown, so I wasn't doing much.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you would just like sit and focus on it. Whereas once we're out of that, book 3 and book 4, life is happening again. And book 1 was hard because it's everything, you're building everything from the ground up. You have all these false starts. Like I said, I write like half the book with a kind of half-baked version of the magic system. Then I figure it out, so I've got to go back and put it all through and make it correct. So like 1 was tough because you're building it all from scratch, and you want to be careful, and you're setting everything up for the future and stuff. So yeah, 2 is the easiest. And then I'd say 1, 3, and 4 were on par for difficulty for just different reasons. I don't know if that's kind of what you were looking for.
No, I think it was. It kind of like puts into a bit of like not perspective, but it just lets me know like when I read these books, like what were you doing while reading these books? You know what I'm saying, or writing these books? And because when you talked about what you were trying to do for 3, and I was thinking about 3 to 4, I definitely felt like there was a tone shift in 3 when you were kind of like wrapping up certain things and introducing other things for the rest of the series. And then in 4, the tone just that same tone from the end of 3 kind of just kept going. And it definitely has like a grittier tone. I mean, the cover itself is also like a bit more like gritty.
Yeah.
Um, and by the end of book 4, I don't agree with it, but I get it. I don't agree with it, but I get it.
Agree.
And my
Don't
eyes are welling up right
which
now.
Oh, what part? What part do you not agree with? How did I hurt you?
Uh, Raiden Raw and my
Oh, involved.
man's.
Okay.
And yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that
I was like, because I love the Osric. Um, I do love the Osric storyline personally. I
Mhm.
think for me, it's like Holt, Osric, then Talia in terms of just like my personal ranking. And
Yeah.
I was really hoping for like at least maybe a little bit more time to spend with this version of Vald that we were about to get.
Mm. Yeah,
And then,
I can
you
see
know,
that, but he yeah, I don't want to say. I mean, yeah, I can see why, but I feel like it was sort of fitting. Like he kind of had to not pay, but
yes,
for his sins, he had to pay in some form, you
right,
know?
yes, and I think that's like what I was, when I was talking about, it, I was like, I get why. Am I happy
Mm.
about it? No, but I get why. But I'm also very partial to the lightning archetype. It's my go-to element in any game that I can play and all that stuff. And so like the lightning wielder is always my go-to, and he's always my guy.
Yeah.
But
I think also that, for like, where 4 ends, I guess we're just going into full spoilers. I mean, the way I'll try not to, but the way 4 ends, the way that the world has kind of sworn to a certain dragon, that only kind of feels really raw when the only person who could contend with that power of Valve is is dead. It
right.
it shows that like we're not into a great place, you know?
Yes, and I mean,
Yeah.
and yeah, that's like the tone that I was seeing by the end of 3 going into 4. Like it all looks like very, very gritty, very like, ooh, stakes are aggressively high, and or are getting higher. Pivoting a little bit, not pivoting, actually staying on the same vein. Do we have any updates for book 5?
The update, I mean, I put monthly updates on my website. There's a blog
Mhm.
section to my website now. Because in the past I was putting the same kind of update on all different sites and social, which was a bit crazy. So now I make the big post on my blog, and at the end it has all kinds of updates for the month. But at the end of the post is usually the progress that I've made on book 5 in that month. So
Mhm.
last month was the first month I was able to start writing again, which was great,
Yeah.
and I'm still writing now. It's slow going just because I've got a newborn. The business stuff is quite intense. It gets more intense as we go on, unfortunately. Sometimes I wish I could give
Yeah,
some of
yeah.
that up. Working on this really cool anniversary project with Broken Binding, and that's just be coming out very soon. So, but I have started, and I think I don't know if you've read. Did you read the report for April? Did you manage to
Have
have a
not
look
yet.
at that?
Have not yet.
Okay, I'd say I don't want to spoil it for you. I would say go to my website, go to the blog, read
Okay.
April's report. At the end,
Okay.
the stuff that I've written about book 5 is there. Um,
Okay.
so I will give out
Okay.
sort of ideas and I'm kind of roughly what I'm working on and what's inspired me.
Mhm.
I'll give some details without trying to spoil anything. But
Mhm.
essentially, the kind of big opening sequence I've drafted up, and now I'm working on some early Talia chapters at the moment. Um, but I think everyone will be happy that Holt and Talia will be more or less together throughout almost all of the book this time. So it's a bit like, book one, and then you have the big expansion arc, and then book 5 is kind of like we're pulling it back in again,
Mm-hmm.
pulling it back in to the
Yeah.
conclusion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love that. I love that. Now I don't want to know anything else about book 5. I will forget everything we talked about and then go in blind, which is what I love to do about books.
Well, sorry,
Let's
it'll
talk.
be probably
Go
be
ahead.
like 2 years until you get it, so you'll forget.
Oh my god, no, don't tell me. Oh, you told me that. Oh no, I wish I could just
Mate,
forget that immediately.
no,
Oh, I'm
you
gonna have to
gotta be
wait.
prepared. You've all got to be prepared and be patient because they're so big. These books are so big.
Yes.
And I've got there's so much work, and I've got
It's
probably more than half my time. Yeah, probably more than half the time is the business stuff. But as soon as I get it done, we'll get it. But I don't want to. I can't muck up the ending, so take my time. You were lucky in that you jumped onto the series as book 4 was coming out, but there was 2 years between book 4 and 2 and 3, so like it's relatively normal for me.
Yeah, I mean, I might end up rereading them in that time as well, then, which would not be a bad idea at all. I want to take us into the business route what you were talking about because, you're a self-published author.
Yeah.
Um, how has that process been for you? For people who are like new to writing books, like at least my era and maybe people older than me growing up really just grew up with traditional publishing, and it wasn't until I came back into books in like 2022 when I was reading again that I really was opened to the world of like self-publishing, indie publishing, things like that. And so now people have options, right? They can try and just publish the book themselves through whatever medium they do, um, or just share their writing journey with people, and then maybe people will just tag along versus going the traditional publishing route. And so, how has that, I guess, experience been for you?
Oh man, and what it's a it's massively uphill. I mean, it's really difficult. I mean, I think the fairest thing to say is all publishing is very, very hard, and trying to make
Mm-hmm.
your living as an author is brutal, whether you're like fully self-published or you're fully in the traditional system or you straddle both, you're a bit hybrid. It's
Mm-hmm.
just writing books and trying to sell them is brutal, full stop.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically like indie stuff, like like the hardest parts were always, I mean, so I started 10 years ago, and back then there was still a lot of scorn towards sort of indie titles. So if you were trying to
Mm-hmm.
like get a bit of attention online, you were out of luck. So you really had to learn how to like figure out maybe how the algorithm in Amazon worked at any given time, how the ads system works, try to get ads that were running effectively. You're doing everything. You're being an ad guy, a marketing guy, a production guy, a sales guy, the writer. You've got to do
Yeah.
everything. You've got to brief all the cover artists and like it's this whole your project management. You've kind of got to do everything, and you just learn tons in the job. And even if you try to learn like figure it all out before you go in, you'll never realize there's half the stuff that you don't realize you don't even
Mm-hmm.
know. So
Yeah.
you're constantly learning. Um, and if you're doing it right, I think you're constantly experimenting and trying new things. So like the hardest thing about it is like doing it all yourself without much help. Uh,
Yeah.
the best thing about it is that you have the opportunity to make mistakes, right? So like traditional is amazing. Like if the stars align, like oh my god, it's the best thing. Like if your book or you are kind of plucked by a major publisher and you're kind of marked as the golden child for this year or and they throw
Mm-hmm.
everything at it and it's their sole focus that year. The stars are the stars just move, like they can move
Yeah.
mountains. It's there's nothing like it.
Mm-hmm.
But you might, there's always that risk that that isn't your treatment, and you could get you could be at the bottom of the heap and your book is kind of ignored. I mean, I've met people on both ends of that have had that golden moment, and also who've kind of, it's like they got picked up and then it's like forgotten about. They forget
Yeah.
that it's even being published. So you can have those extremes. And in the bad situation, if you sort of get forgotten about and things don't work, your cover's not right or whatever it is, it's very hard to get anything changed in that big system. The
Mm-hmm.
machines are so big and slow moving; it's very tough.
Yeah.
On the indie side, you you're not really going to have that stars align moment to the same extent. You can have a sort of lesser version of that. But your ability is, if you put the book up with like a slightly duff cover, you can change the cover.
Yeah.
Right? That you can keep. You're allowed to make mistakes because you don't have just this one shot. Like you can keep working at it, innovate, try again. Even going back to the book and like fixing bits, if you're seeing a lot of feedback, you can go fix bits, tidy it up, upload the ebook again. It's really simple. So I think the biggest superpower that you have is the ability to fuck up, learn from it, and then try again. You don't have to. It doesn't all have to be perfect from the start. And my stuff certainly wasn't. And I know that there's been a few key moments where I do think if I hadn't made that decision, I just wouldn't be here. So I'm very cognizant of that. Like I've made some cover changes that have been really important to me. I was able to pick the narrator for Songs of Chaos. That was like possibly the best choice. That was maybe the best choice I've ever made. And that could have gone any direction. So, and if you try 10 things and 9 don't work, but 1 does, brilliant. You don't need to remember those 9 things. It's okay that they didn't work. You're just trying to find the thing that does work for you. You'll constantly be changing how you pitch it, how you might change the blurb. Like you can just keep trying and trying and trying. You're not just stuck with whatever comes out, in that first shot. So, but it changes so radically. Like what self-publishers were doing and able to do 10 years ago is very different from like now. It's so different. And if people were looking for like advice starting now, I'm probably not the best person because the way that I came through is very different. And literally some of the methods it doesn't really work anymore. So if you're starting out now, I would suggest definitely listen to like someone like me or anyone else that's successful and try to drink in some tips, but find people who are starting out right now who have maybe found success in the last couple of years and ask them and see what they did, because that's going to be more relevant than what I did, 8 years ago, because it changes that fast.
I was just thinking about this today as I was prepping for this. Like, I'm in the Bookstagram, Book Talk, BookTubes. Like, just I see the content. I don't interact with all the creators, but I see the content, and there's like a very interesting pipeline now for over the past few years of creator into self-published debut author.
Mm-hmm.
Like, hey, I'm talking about books online. Also, I'm writing a book. And as they amass the following of like them talking about books and book recs and whatever their thoughts about other books are, then they come out and say, "Oh yeah, by the way, I just wrote a book," or whatever it is, and you can find it here, etc. And so they've already like built up a medium, small, whatever following, at least for people to like, okay, maybe these people will try my book. I don't have to like yell into this void of KDP or things like that and hope that somebody scrolling will like click it and say, "I'll give it a shot," kind of thing. And that's like, I've seen that so many times now that I'm like, this has got to be just like one of the newer like generation things that you just do.
Maybe. I mean, I think it's just you're seeing that because that's where you are. You're seeing that because you're on those platforms, right? Like, and so I think for the people that suits, I think that's a great method. But there's many people like me who like, I wouldn't be a good content creator. I wouldn't be good at it. So it would be a bad idea for me to pursue that. So I guess you are going to see the people who have those natural talents that can do that. That could be a good way to do it. My worry always is that, like, I wouldn't want people to think that the only way they can become an author is by first becoming a content creator, because that in of itself is a very hard thing to get working, and it's a very hard job. So like if you become very successful at doing that, you've developed a set of skills that isn't the exact same set of skills as like one author would have to develop. And these two jobs are both brutally hard to get right. The idea that then you're going to try and do both at the same time, I just worry is like almost too much for people. And so like the people that can manage it is brilliant, like all power to them. But for anyone that isn't naturally inclined to get on TikTok, like, I mean, I'm not, I'm not good at that sort of thing. You can do it. You can do it without amassing a kind of following first. Like can be done. I mean, maybe it's a little harder in indie now if you don't have that. I don't know. Again, you have to talk to people who are starting out now. But I still get the impression that you can succeed without trying to find like 50,000 people to follow you first. Just bearing in mind that people might follow you because they like your funny content. That doesn't mean they're going to buy your book on vampires or whatever you're doing. Like, it could be completely different things. People might like to watch you talk about something. It doesn't necessarily mean they're going to buy your thing. There's always going to be that very small percentage that you're going to have a percentage that will try, and that can be a great way to launch things off. But like, just be realistic. If you had 50,000 followers, you're not going to get 40,000 sales. You're just like, that's probably not going to happen. And now I'd say there's ways to do it both ways. So people shouldn't feel like they have to do that. I think sometimes the conversation, especially on social media, is you must do this. But that's like, you're in social media and people are telling you this is what you must do. You must be on this platform. Whereas like, if you were to go to another writers conference somewhere, some other place, they would have different advice, So take all things with a pinch of salt and think, would this honestly work for me? And if the answer is yes, go for it. But if it doesn't, then don't panic and think you're doomed. You're not doomed. It's not. I'm not saying like it's going to be easy, but like, think about really famous writers in our genre, right? Like Matt Dinniman. There's like 6 million sales, right? He's got like, I don't know, 40,000 Instagram followers, but that's very small. And he didn't have those followers before he became Matt Dinniman. Like, you've got lots of writers like this where you don't have to have a huge following necessarily on some platform. The books can find success. Unfortunately, a lot of what gets books successful is like, the algorithms love it. The Amazon or Audible algorithm really like it, and it recommends it a lot. And that's a different thing entirely. And that's more about positioning it with the right cover, with the right kind of pitch, with the right, being in the right genre category, all that stuff, and then a little bit of luck, because we can't force the systems to do what we want. That's more powerful in some ways.
I was just gonna say, like, you were talking earlier about like traditional publishing, in that sometimes you could be the author that like gets all the resources, but you could also be the author that doesn't, and your book is coming out, but like nobody knows about it because the resources just weren't put into your launching. And it reminded me of a series that like this one author I read her debut trilogy, fire. She's coming out with a new trilogy. The first book, I saw it online. I guess she was talking about it. I think it's published. It's not like indie. I think it's Trad Publishing. And I read book 1, awesome. I got the arc for it. I didn't even know book 2 was coming out. I didn't hear anything about book 2 until I just saw the cover on like Twitter one day. Beautiful cover. I've still not read the book because I just keep forgetting to get it and read it. But I just think about like everybody, like a lot of people who I know who read first trilogy love the trilogy. Book 1 of like the next series was awesome. I didn't hear about book 2. In the way that maybe I expected to. And one person's experience is not indicative of the entire pool, but it just kind of like made me think like, yeah, there's probably other series out there too that I probably had read book 1, book 2, but like, dude, where's book 3? Oh, it's been out for 2 years.
Yes.
Where?
Yeah. Well,
when?
that's going to be super cool. I mean, that's just like, it's hard. There's so much noise. It's hard to remind people. I mean, a lot of my work with book 4 in terms of leading up to it was like screaming that it was coming out. But even though I was like, for months and months, it was like, book 4 is coming. Here's the dates. It's on the website. It's on every mailing list. I'm posting about it all the time. It's all I'm talking about. Still like a couple of months after the book comes out, people were like emailing or messaging or being like, is the next book out? And you're like, yeah, man. I've been shouting about this for like, but like, everyone's busy. There's a lot of noise out there. And I do wonder whether we sometimes think that it'll come to us because it'll come to us. But like, top tips, like if you really like something, try and actively seek out the information. And I would imagine 99% of authors that are like in any way worth the salt have a website. And on that website, they're probably going to have the most up-to-date information. So like, like Google the name, go to their website, you will probably get all the information you need. I mean, the number of times that people ask me for details and I'm like, have you checked the website? Like I sort of inside, I'm like, why? Check the website. It's all there.
It's like they treat you like their friend who's like, hey, remind me about this. And you're like, no, I put it here for you. It's right here. It's right here in really nice text. Like I don't have to DM you like the same thing.
I get that. I get that a
So
lot.
it's just really it's really hard. We have to batter it over and over and over and over again. Like
Mm-hmm.
the next book
Yeah.
is coming, or what, and you'll still never reach everyone that you mean to. It's just really hard. Even with you
Yeah.
follow an offer on Amazon, you don't always get the new release alerts because I guess if people follow tons of offers, they'll get spammed every day. If there's so
Mm-hmm.
why. And it's not clear when Amazon will choose to alert a follower that a new book has come out. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. It seems a bit haphazard. So like yeah, the best thing you can do if you really love something is try to be really active. Like join the author's mailing list. You know, that's a real and probably the second best thing the best thing you can do,
Mm-hmm.
because there's no algorithms. You know, the social media algorithms won't get in your way. If they email you and you've whitelisted them and stuff, you'll get the email, you'll get the information, follow along, check the website. Um, you know, if you see it on pre-order, it's probably worth. But if you know you're going to buy it, it's probably worth trying to pre-order it when you can, so that like it
Yeah.
just you might wake up one day, oh, this thing I forgot I'd pre-ordered it and it's here. Um, there's just there's a lot of noise. It takes a lot of signal boosting to kind of make everyone aware, and that's what it's true that like some um and in publishing, in traditional publishing, I think it's everyone's got the best of intentions, but there's not enough staff. There's sort of not enough staff and
Mm-hmm.
too many books. They don't necessarily provide the resources that the publishers would like in order to treat every book the same. You know, everyone's got great intentions, but then the crunch happens, and there's a lot of people very overworked. So of course your energy gets focused into a few things. It makes a lot of sense. But that's why we're out there all the time trying to promote.
This might just be me picking your business brain real quick, but is there a world where a business model that essentially goes to traditional publishers and say, "Hey, listen, we know you have a lot of books you're trying to like publicize and stuff, but you don't have the resources to publicize all of them. Give us maybe a subset and we'll publicize it for you. We'll work on the media stuff, we'll work on the marketing, we'll work on that for
Oh
you."
yeah, there'll be companies like that. Yeah, there'll be companies there'll be companies like that. I don't know of them. I don't know who would. I don't know any off the top of my head. I know a couple of agencies that will help specifically more indie authors running big campaigns on Amazon and stuff like that. You know, like
Mhm.
advertising. I'm sure such a thing exists. But again, the question is, people they're under resourced in staff, but they're also under resourced in terms of money. So it doesn't matter. I mean, a company could come along and say, "Give us money and we'll promote," and they're like, "We have no money," or like,
Yeah.
we're not able to allocate money to this. We're not allowed, or we can't, or we don't have the kind of budget that would make sense to
Mhm.
make it work. The margins are pretty thin most of the time,
Yeah.
which is
Okay.
kind of why it's the big blockbuster stuff that is really where they make almost all of their money,
Right. Right.
because of just the way that everything's quite thin. You know, think about how much you pay for a book. It's not too much. Once you've cut in, remember that like most retailers are taking 50% or more. Well, the retailer might not get that, but between the retailer and the distributor, 50% is gone. And
Mhm.
in the big traditional publishing, they tend to be their own distribution, so it's not as big of a deal that. But anywhere between 40 to like 55% of the retail price of a book is kind of not going to the publisher. Never mind going to the
Yeah.
author, right? The
Yeah.
margins are kind of thin. Um,
Yeah.
so I mean that's why people are loving special editions, because it's a little bit, because
Yeah.
usually that's a bit more in house. There's not as you're not selling for a retailer where there's a huge cutout. That's why
Mhm.
they can be very useful for indie authors as well.
I mean, that's why when people yell about the price of books, bro, like the amount of times that I've actually gotten DMs, they're like this book is so expensive. I'm like, do you understand? Like, if you would just think about, just pause real quick and think about everything that goes into putting this book in front of you to buy right now, it's at least worth 25 to 30 bucks USD. Like, it's at least worth that, if not more. If you actually think about it, it's probably worth more. And so they're discounting you aggressively. And if you're like, well, why don't they sell it for cheaper? Author doesn't get a lot of that, really, a lot of the times either. So it's like, um, instead of like really being upset about why am I paying 30 bucks for a book, try the ebook. I don't know, like at least respect the fact that there's a lot of work going into putting the book in front of you. Um, and appreciate that.
The thing is that I mean, look, the ebooks exist; they're cheaper. I know some people just I don't read ebooks. I hate them. Okay, that's fine. but that's the cheap option. I mean, if you're buying a
Yeah.
physical thing, it's going to be a bit more expensive because it had to be made, it had to be shipped, it had to, like shipped across the world potentially, depending on where it came from. All this cost goes up, all the fuel cost goes up. Like a lot of the time, the costs to make the physical product keep going up, and we don't necessarily get to charge much more. Like, or we
Yeah.
don't. It's very incremental. It often doesn't, and especially in fantasy, right? You take a fantasy book, like a big book, like this is the Reckoning hardback that I've got. Look at it; it's massive, right?
Massive.
I mean, you don't typically pay proportionately more for a big fantasy book as you would for a regular book. There might be,
Right.
at least in the UK, you might charge someone a few pounds more, but it's like 4 times the word count of a standard
Yeah.
fiction book. You're not
Yeah.
we can't charge 4 times the price, but it's kind of 4 times the cost to create.
Exactly. Well, I just wanted to like touch on, speaking of hardbacks,
Yeah.
Dragon's Blade.
Oh,
Can we talk about that real quick? That's very exciting.
Yes. We
That's
can.
very exciting.
Yes. Did you see the review?
I did. I was very
Ah.
excited about it. That's what also reminded me of like, bro, I have Dragon's Blade on my Kindle right now, so I actually opened it. I think I'm like 3 or 4 just chapters in right now. But I was like, that's so exciting. But can you catch people up who may have not seen the announcement?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, I think in this conversation, this is my 10-year anniversary as an author, and I wanted to celebrate somehow. So I got in touch with Broken Binding, who I do special editions of Songs of Chaos with them, and I said, "Hey, can we work on something here?" And it just kind of kept getting bigger and bigger. It was kind of crazy until eventually we landed on this like anniversary edition set of my first trilogy, The Dragon's Blade. This is an omnibus, a regular omnibus version of the whole thing. I can explain, but this series, 3 books, and it's just been given the world's greatest makeover. Like you go from like the current versions to what's coming. It's stunning. So it's actually going on sale this weekend. It's going on sale May 15th and 17th. 17th is a general sale, so everyone will have access to it. And it just looks incredible. If you've not seen the reveal, you can see it on my Instagram or Broken Binding's Instagram or their other social media. Jeff Brown dust jacket cover up, but like next level. He like dug really deep. He worked really, really hard on these. Gilded silver edges. So much foil that like the printers were having, a panic attack. Like we've put on as much foil as we're allowed. If we're putting like the limit of like, there's going to be, so like each of the 3 books, like there's the originals here, but on the spines of the new set, it's going to have a continuous foil design. So on the shelf,
lovely.
you'll see that it says the Dragon's Blade. There'll be the swords, all in silver foil. It looks incredible. So it'll feel like this really special set, like a unified collection. Great board designs, full illustrated color end papers by Marco Gonzalez, and really some of them are just amazing. Like the last one in the last book is mind-blowing. But you'll see them on the reveals. There's not really spoilers. Like it's 2 dragons fighting over a mountain that's exploded. It's pretty gnarly stuff. And it's just stunning. And like what a way to celebrate, still being here after 10. I mean, it's partly to celebrate the first series because I got my career started with this trilogy, and it's been successful in its own right. I mean, it's sold almost 250,000 copies. And it's what got me here today. But nowadays, it's kind of very under the radar. Everything's Songs of Chaos, and it's sort of forgotten about. So it's been a really great way to go back, revisit it for me too, because I have to go back and read the text to figure out the art briefs and what we're going to illustrate and stuff. And yeah, so it's partly a celebration of it, and partly a celebration of still being here 10 years later, which is no small feat as an author. And yeah, I can't wait to have them out there. They're going to look incredible. Yeah.
They look awesome. And I mean, Broken Binding does awesome work regardless. But I was so excited about this. I was like, that's so cool. Also, congratulations on 10 years. Didn't say that earlier, but wow, what a feat.
Thank you.
To be here still 10 years
Still
later,
standing.
still writing, still standing. You have Dragon's Blade. You have, I believe, what, Battlespire?
Yeah, Battlespire.
And then Songs of Chaos, like 5th book, still working on it. Are you thinking about like, have you already thought about what's coming after Songs of Chaos in terms of like, are you trying to go deeper in the world with like novellas and standalones and short stories or things like that? Or are you trying to go like to complete a new series, or what's next for you?
or not even what's next? Like, what are you like? Are
Yeah,
you thinking about anything else afterwards?
I have an idea for what I would write after songs. So I have an idea. Um, don't want to talk too much, just in case I just
No
abandon
worries.
it or something.
Yes,
But I have an
100%.
idea. It would be totally separate. I mean, the same way that Songs of
Mhm.
Chaos is totally separate from Dragon's Blade.
Yeah.
Um, I do kind of like the idea of I can leave it and be done. I mean, generally, with at least with those series, the worlds exist in some ways to just tell the story. And I feel like
Yeah.
the way that they end, it'd be very hard to pick it back up again. I mean, it'd be very hard to pick up
Mhm.
Dragon's Blade again, even if I wanted to. It ends and it ends. I can't. Once you get to the end, you'll understand what I mean. And I think the
Yeah.
same will be true of songs, where like it'd be very hard to envision sort of future books. Like everything is there and exists to tell this really great story. Um,
Yeah.
and if I was to just dive into the past, it would, I mean, especially in songs, it would feel very similar because the point of Songs of Chaos is the world has been trapped in this endless looping cycle. So if you go
Yeah.
back even 100, 200 years, it's going to be similar stuff. But we've dealt
Yeah.
with that now, you know? And I think it's done. That's great. I enjoyed it. I do look forward to moving on as well. Um,
Mhm.
for better or worse, like, so, it's a little scary to leave something that is, that people like, but then did it
Mhm.
once. I don't want to be completely stuck on the one thing for forever. So it would be
Yeah.
something brand new. Um, Ideally, something where the books would be a little bit shorter, but I could maybe write
Yeah.
more of them. A little bit kind of Dresden File like, where you could have shorter books that kind of maybe work a bit more standalone, but you can jump
Yeah.
in.
Like a bit
Maybe
like episodic in a sense.
slightly more episodic. I think I would, if it's working out and doing well, I could
Sure.
build something up slowly, perhaps. But I think maybe a little more episodic, um,
Yeah.
and that's and a little shorter. Just because like I've done the big epic now, and it's great, but damn it takes it out of you. They are marathons. It would be.
Yeah.
I think it'd be refreshing if I have the ability to write some shorter works and just focus in on um, smaller stake stuff, like
Mhm.
something about the big world-ending epic fantasy thing where the stakes are always so high. I
Mhm.
think living in that frame for this long, it's kind of exhausting. Like the amount of work you have to do to kind of keep that tension there throughout. You're like, it feels exhausting. So it's like
Yeah.
it's quite fatiguing. And one thing that I really loved about the Osric story in both Defiant and Reckoning is that it is part of the main story it is part of the overall story, but his story isn't the big world-ending stakes. It's very personal stakes,
Right. Right.
and it's a nice little refreshing change. Like the tone and the pacing sort of changes a bit on his stuff, and I think you need that. Otherwise, it would just be kind of fatiguing to be constantly at the Hole and Ash, great philosophical
Mhm.
kind of grand edge of your seat stuff all the time. So I think the future thing I'd like to be a little more Osric like, and then it's sort of the stakes are smaller scale but very personal to the people we meet in that book or whatever we do.
Mhm.
So that's where
Yeah.
I'd like to go, but it's going to be a long way off. So we'll see. Maybe another idea will come to me. Never know.
Mhm. Looking forward to it. I also guys, I promise I didn't gloss over it. I was just saying it till the end. But big congratulations on the little one. You're a dad.
Oh, thanks.
That's
Yeah.
that's awesome. I, I I I I I wanna still keep this, about the books, but when when I heard that you're gonna be a dad, I was thinking, like, does that change how you like, books that you want to write or stories that you want to tell or stories that you want to make at all?
Oh, I mean, it's early days. He's not even 3 months old yet, so
Mhm.
it might do. It might do.
Mhm. Yeah,
Um,
we'll check it in 2 years when
we'll
I, like,
check back in when
when I message you
yeah.
to come back on for book 2 or sorry, book 5,
I'll have more grey
but
hair by then. I'll be
you'll be like, "Dude, epic fantasies take stuff out of you, but kids really
Jeez, yes. Oh
take the
god,
piss out of
yeah.
you." Oh
The
my
only thing that
god.
takes it more out of you than writing a 250 word thousand behemoth is babies. Um,
Doing it simultaneously, really, is also the thing. But, wow. Michael, thank you so much for coming on today and chatting with me. Um, my goal with this was just to have a meaningful conversation, and I appreciate that because it definitely was. Um, like I said, your book was my favorite of last year. I still talk about it. It's still a banger. I have Don't let it fall. I have Rake right here, and
oh,
I
he's got
love Rake.
right.
He
Look
is
at
my
him.
favorite character of the series.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
And we didn't even talk about Rake, and he's my favorite character of the series. And that's
Well,
for a
you can
different
you
time.
can
That's definitely.
we can talk a little bit, right? You want to talk about Rick?
Can we talk about Rake? I love Rake because
Okay.
I'm just gonna hold him with me. Right? I'm just gonna hold him with me. I love Rake, and I love characters like this, right? The Ethan of the
Mm,
series. You read
yeah.
Will White,
Yeah.
and the characters that are funny, like not comic relief, but they quip a lot. They're really powerful, and they have their own demons in their head that they're trying to work on. But they're there as like a training partner for the main character. They're there to like help guide where the story's going. But they're not the main character. Um
No.
but I love Rick's story, and I love like where it went, where it's going, how it's going, etc. Um but he is like favorite character of the series, which is why like when you released this, I was like,
Mhm.
I missed the Ash one, but I'm definitely
I
getting the
gotta
Rake
get the Rick.
one.
Yeah. Yeah,
Rance
Rick's
one
been
looks
great.
really cute too.
Yeah,
But
I've loved all the plushies so far. I'm not sure how we're going to do the next one. It's
yeah.
definitely some thought, but I'm glad Rake worked for you. I mean, yeah, um, I think Rake came into the book one because I felt I needed an extra element, um,
Mhm.
and that sort of like epic fan. You know, you can occasionally worry that things are feeling a bit pompous or whatever, but like you throw a character like Rake in there, and it's like a hit of lemon juice or something. It just kind of like shakes the whole thing up and like brightens the whole thing up.
Mhm.
And he's allowed to talk in a way that isn't strictly epic fantasy because he's such a strange character within the world. Like the world almost rejects him. You know, so he's so at odds with everything that you can have him speak in a way that you wouldn't necessarily have another character speak. And then yeah,
Mhm.
you give him his own deep demons, as you say. Um, yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think if he was like. I mean, he's definitely got Ethan sort of inspirations. I think in there. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I think I read this before I read Cradle. So I mean, I read Rake, and then I went back and read Ethan, and then other books. I read other characters that like have that same like spice factor as a character like Rake, and I'm like, this really is my favorite archetype of character. This really is my favorite like trope in a sense of having the Quipper be really strong, and people don't want to mess with him. And
Mm.
when they try to mess with him, he's like, "You shouldn't mess with me. I'm
It's a,
funny and chill
yeah.
for a reason because I'm powerful enough to be chill."
It's like this. He's like super arrogant, but not in a way that gets like on your nerve because he's kind of funny.
Yes.
But the very fine line is for all of his arrogance and strength, you know that often he's wrong and he's just not admitting
Yeah.
it. You know where his flaws are, and you know that he's
Yeah.
covering a lot of that up with that arrogance. And so like after a while, you
Yeah.
realize that it's a bit of a charade, a bit of an act,
Mhm.
or you can see through it.
Yes.
Because you, the reader,
Yeah.
can see through it, you don't get angry at him. You're almost like, oh come on, Rick, you know, get a grip. You know, you know what you have to do.
Dude, it's fine. You know what? It's fine. We all make mistakes, Rick. It's fine. But it is the masked character archetype where it's like a lot of this is a facade, and
Mm.
underneath it is like the one the character who's not wanting to be vulnerable, but eventually has to, and things like that. So, um, guys, this is Rake. He's my favorite character of Songs of Chaos. If you read Songs of Chaos for nothing else, you should read it for Rake. But you should also read it for everything else. Um, but dude, thank you so much for chatting. I appreciate you. Where can people find you? Well, I would ask that, but we already talked about it. You have a website. Awesome, Michael. I have one more question for you. Like, ask everybody this who comes to the podcast. It's an intentionally vague question, but if for someone listening today, if there's any one piece of advice that you want to give to someone listening today, what would it be? Anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll take it. I'll take it. Anything. Yeah. Go get your 10K, guys. Yeah. That's me with walking. Actually, I love walking. I hate running, so I just defaulted to walking. I was like, I need to walk these 10,000 steps. It's gonna take me like 3 or 4 hours. Yeah, it really is. It really is. Awesome. Guys, please clap wherever you are for Michael R. Miller. And if you're in public, please clap even louder so people think you're weird. And we will catch you guys in the next one. Thank y'all.